Welcome to True and Unpolished. Through this podcast, our intention is to uplift, amuse, and inspire you to create more of a life you'll love. Let's get authentic, everybody. So, hey, everybody, maybe. Mary and I had planned to record the podcast today, and then Mary's a little under the weather, and then we decided maybe we'd just have a friend call, and some of the things that I wanted to tell her in the friend call, I was saving for the podcast. And so we're doing some raw audio that may or may not ever reach your ears. But just in case, you're listening to True and Unpolished, and this is Mary and Lydia. I had an inspiration to talk about, so my family and I went on a vacation, and it was the best vacation we've had yet, which is great because they keep getting better. And part of that is due to my husband and I doing couples therapy. And I say that with his permission because we have decided that, you know, therapy is so stigmatized that we want to be models for the fact that it does not need to be stigmatized. And you don't have to be in crisis to reach out for help. I mean, part of being in a spousal relationship for any length of time means that you're going to inevitably have conflict. So in any case, that is part of why this vacation went so well. We set our intention before we went. And what we always know is that, like, if our intention is to have fun on the vacation, then what we say is, okay, what is our intention? How are we going to show up to make sure that we have fun? So the intention is, first, we want to have fun, but how do we need to show up? So then we set the intention of how we're going to show up, which is, you know, flexible and light and lighthearted and easygoing, those kinds of things. So we did that. And then I said, so when we get into an argument, because it's not if, it's when you're in a spousal relationship, that's straight from our counselor, we need our tools. Like, she's given us these tools, these worksheets, and they're all from Gottman. And guys, like, Google Gottman, it's awesome. Like, they're just amazing researchers and have come up with some really amazing tools for couples. So I said, oh, should I get the tools? And he's like, yeah. And then we realized that they're on our phone because she's emailed them to us. So we had them on our phone. So we didn't need, because I've literally like printed them out and laminated copies for both of us. So we didn't bring the laminated copies, but we did have them on our phone.
That sounds like a lot of fun, by the way.
I know. Make sure you bring your laminated copies for when you get an argument. It sounds like a blast. So we went, and where we went was like a Waterpark hotel, and which is not necessarily my cup of tea. But this was a Father's Day trip. And so Keith, my husband, got to choose like where we went. And this is what he chose. And it was great. Like, from the moment we walk into this water park, it's the energy in the room is one of just like sheer joy, like kids dancing, like water's coming from everywhere.
I love water parks. I mean, they make me so happy. I truly think that water park is one of the funnest places on earth, one of the funnest things to do. And my friend Juliet and I came up with this plan that we were going to be water park, water slide testers. Like, that was what our job was going to be.
Yeah.
And we only tested for fun, not safety.
I love it. And I know that because you've told me. So here's what I did. When I went down the slides, there were two huge slides, and I have two sons. So I went down 4 times, each son, each slide. And the whole time in my head, I was saying, Mary would do this. Mary would say this was fun. Mary would have fun doing this. this is fun because Mary loves doing this. Like, this is what I'm saying. And you have to walk up like 4 stories because it's that high up.
Yeah.
I mean, these slides are not like kiddie slides. They are like roller coaster slides.
Well, did you ride any of the kiddie slides too?
Well, I
Or
did
just
not.
the 2 big ones?
I
You
did.
just,
I did the big
that
one.
was it.
And the
You were
lazy
like,
river. I did the
go
lazy
big or
river.
go.
Yeah. And
Which was more fun, the lazy river or the slides?
um so the lazy river was more my speed, but the fun came from the reaction from my kids with me doing the slides. Like, I got the joy from them because they were so excited that I was going to do, the slides.
Well, what did they do? What did they do?
Well, I mean, the first of all, okay. So, the water park is huge and you get really tired when you're, doing this stuff. And so the kids, I was like the second day and they said, are you going to do the slides? They like made me go on record, like, before we leave, will you do these slides? And I was like, yes, before we leave, I will do the slides. Now, this is only day 2, but the kids are getting like kind of over the water park thing because they've been swimming for 2 days for 8
we need
hours.
something new and exciting now.
Yeah, like they were really wanting something new and exciting. And what they normally do is they'll like jump in the hot tub and get warm, but they couldn't do that because it was 16 and above only in the hot tub, which is another thing. Like, bookmark that because I want to tell you about that.
Okay.
They would normally go just warm up real quick and then get back into the pool, but they couldn't do that because there's this big gate around it and signs like 16 and above and whatever. So
is it cold? Was it cold inside the water park?
No, I mean, it was 85 degrees inside, but when you're in the water without any break, the water is heated, but after hours and hours, it's cold. You get cold because you got to have a moment to warm up. So I said, I'm noticing they're getting antsy. They're talking about the arcade, which is not included in the price of the hotel. And I was like, day 2 is way too early to be going to the arcade. I said, okay, guys, I'll do the slides. And they're like, yes. And so, they both take off, right? And Kai grabs one of the double, things. That's my oldest son, grabs one of the double, like, tubey things. And we walk up there. First of all, right in front of us is like this big man and the teeniest little girl I'd ever seen. Like, she was probably, she was in like the wet diapers, swim diapers.
Yeah.
Maybe
and she's gonna do the slide.
Yeah. And she is like not even thinking about it. She's like hopping on and they're having to like stop her to get her to like wait a minute so her dad can like get situated or whatever. And I'm thinking, okay, this little girl is not scared. And Mary would say, this is fun and da, 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 and I'm going through the whole thing. And I'm like asking the girl up, like at the top of the slide, like, which way is there a front way and a back way? And like, who needs to be? And I'm asking all the rules of like how this can be safe. And he's like, Mom, it's good. I got it. I know how to do it, because he's already been down a billion times with his dad and with his brother. And so he gets in the front and I get in the back and scream the entire way down. Like, you can hear.
I heard the video.
Yeah, I posted the video on our True and Unpolished group, Facebook group. And like, I was hopeful that you could hear the screaming because you
could hear the screaming and the laughing of your husband afterwards.
Yes, exactly. It made everybody really, really happy. But I noticed that my youngest son wasn't there, right? And my older son's like, okay, come on, next one, because there's 2 slides, right? So now we need to do the yellow one. And we go up and we do the yellow one and I scream again. And for some reason, the float never stops. It like puts me every time directly into the lazy river. It's like the universe knows that I want to go to the lazy river. And so it just kept trying to get me to go over to the lazy river.
Well,
And
that's good.
yeah, it was, except for the fact that I could not get out of the double thing. You can't just
But you
get
didn't
out.
have to because you were going to go straight to the lazy river,
Well,
right?
the problem with the lazy river is that there are buckets that then dump water at certain points over your head. So I have to have my feet on the ground so that I can time it so that the
Right.
buckets don't dump on my head. Okay. Like I
Because
can't
that
just,
is not fun.
no. And like, and there, no.
What were the three things that you said at the beginning?
What? What three things?
Like, what were y'all going to do to be
Yeah,
able
flexible.
to have fun?
I know. And easygoing I was, but I also did time. I never, ever got dumped with a bucket, not once.
You
But
didn't?
no, because I timed it on the lazy river.
Oh,
But I will,
well,
but,
that might have been fun, but I don't really like to get
the
dumped
kids
with a
loved
bucket
it.
either.
Like they on purpose
course.
timed it so that they could be dumped with
Of
the water.
course.
And I, yeah, exactly. Watching. Okay. So my youngest son, he had disappeared, but he had run as soon as I said, I'm going to do the slides. And I said, where were you? I was doing the slides. And he said,
Right.
I couldn't see you. And I realized my youngest son's autistic. Like he has no interest in seeing me come out of a slide. Like to him, the only benefit to doing the slide is doing it with him.
Yeah.
And so, and that I was told that by my husband, and I went, oh yeah, right, okay. I said, okay, youngest son, let's go. You and I do it. And then he was stoked, and so we did both. And
So he just left because he had better things to do.
well, he left because of the excitement of. I said, I'm going to do the slide, and he's like, ah, and he just runs because it was like, ah, she's going to do the slide. And then I think he probably even forgot like why he was excited in the first place.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed is one of the things that I had decided to do while I was there is really and truly, anytime I felt any inkling of like negative emotion or resistance, I was going to say to myself, this is on purpose, not just the moment and whatever
Right.
I was doing, but the negative feeling or the way I was feeling. So instead of
or
just
like the bucket, fill it up with water.
Right. So instead of just the actual circumstance being on purpose, which I'm actually really practiced at, it was the negative feeling is, right? And so I'm looking around, I'm sitting, I'm looking around, and just at the sheer joy of these people. And I recognize that I am looking at their outsides and comparing them to my insides. But I can say that energetically, you can tell that these people are in total joy, parents, children, young, old, whatever. And I had the thought, but I'm not that. I'm not joyful like that right now. And then came the why, like, why am I not? And like this new awareness came to me that had been all the time in my thoughts, because my oldest is 10 years old, he's 10 and a half. The thought was that from the moment I became a parent, there is a voice that has been inside of my head that says, don't F this up. Don't F this up. And I recognize that this is not relegated to just parenthood. I think this can be a universal experience for everybody.
Right.
And I didn't know that this heaviness that I had been experiencing was from that voice, that don't F this up voice. And I was curious when I wanted to talk to you about this, about if you can pinpoint that voice in you and what it's about. Like, you're so freaking light though. I always see you as so light that
I would say I don't my voice doesn't sound like that. I mean, but I have a voice that is more like, my voice is stay small.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Stay small. Because I actually have this picture that I found recently, and I'll show it to you. We can post it on the site, but it's a picture of me laughing. I'm with my siblings, and I am laughing. It's like a classic picture of a cartoon character that throws their head back
yeah, her
and
head is
holds their
thrown back and she's like
mouth
laugh.
wide open,
Yeah.
like in this tremendous laughter, like the funniest thing you've ever seen.
Right.
And I asked my sister about it, and she was like, yeah, that's how you were. I was little. I was probably 4 or 5 in that when that picture was taken, with my head just like wide open. I think what's happened in my life in the moments where I'm like fully open and present and alive and laughing, then something has followed that was traumatic right after. And
Oh,
so what I've done, and really what I have intentionally done in since my daughter was born, because that really began my conscious, what I've intentionally done is chosen to uncover that laughter, uncover that sunshine that is truly who I am at my core. And
yeah, that's
it's
how
who
I
we
see you.
all are.
That's how I
What?
see. That's how I see you.
Well, I think I'm able to uncover that easily with you because you allow me and honor that part of me. But I don't do that with everybody, and I don't do that in every situation. I mean, you've witnessed me in situations where I'm closed off.
Sure.
And there's certain times and with certain people that I'm truly closed off with, but it is something intentional that I do. But the voice in my head is stay small.
Wow.
If you shine, if you are your most beautiful, most authentic self, then someone may hurt you or something may happen to take that away. So just stay small.
Right. Oh,
That's what my voice says.
so the shoe drops. It's so really it's the same thing because for me it's the shoe drops, like don't F this up, or the shoe drops, and yours is stay small or the shoe drops. And I can
Right.
say that prior to kids, my voice was don't be so dramatic because I was told that over and over again as a kid because I loved
Right.
theater and I was loud. And I actually intend to ask my mom and my sister about their memories of me as a kid when I visit South Carolina in August, because I want to see if they remember when that stopped. Like, when did that light go out? And see if I can figure out what that was about.
Mhm.
But I think that the voice got replaced with the kids. Like I know that it did. And it's don't F this up. And it has a lot to do, and I say this all the time, but I recognize that my parents were doing the best they could with what they had from where they were. And, you know, my father was very sick, physically and mentally. My mother had to go to work and she was surviving. And I was on my own, you know, and
Yeah.
that's where I learned to retreat into my head and to disassociate and to, you know, like it's safe here in my head, in my
Yeah. You
imagination.
create a fantasy world in your mind
Right,
because that's better than the life that you're living.
right. And you know what's so funny is it's like the fantasy world in my mind is the water park in materiality. You know what I mean? Like so the actual,
So you would create a water park as your fantasy that you would go to?
well, in but it, well, so it's
Not
okay.
literally.
So my fantasy was actually always Gilligan's Island. That I was
Okay.
on Gilligan's Island with Marianne and the professor and the skipper and Gilligan. and I had a cottage there too. And we would, get in all these hilarious little, scenes of trying to figure our way out of the island, but then they wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And the coconut radio, wouldn't reach land, that sort of thing. So I did it through TV. And I think that what happened is it became a crutch. And so now, since the pandemic, I went back to that. I went for 10 years without watching anything, no TV, very few movies, to now, binge watching as a way of retreating, as a way of associating.
And that coincided with the start of the pandemic, right?
It did. Yeah. It was about a month into the pandemic when I started to, because I was around people all the time, and I was around them, and remember, the voice in my head said, "Don't F this up." So I was constantly running on stress and pressure and heaviness and then, I had a son who, at 18 months was diagnosed with suspected autism spectrum disorder. We found out he had a chromosomal anomaly. He was, at that time, he was banging his head on any hard thing he could find. I would have to put my body between he and whatever the surface was. There was a lot of stress there. But the truth was, had that not been there, I don't think I'd have been any less stressed, because the voice in my head began with my older son's birth. Don't F this up.
So I think what I would say, the good news is that you've uncovered it, and I've uncovered, because a lot of times we don't even know what the voice is.
Right.
So one of the reasons why mindfulness is helpful is because then you're aware, you increase your awareness. But then we have all this unconscious stuff that's why, art therapy and other forms of expressive therapies, or, you don't have to be in therapy for art to work either. Music, drama, dance, any of that stuff can be so helpful. And one of my favorites is exploring dream work. When we begin to uncover that, like first we practice mindfulness, and then we begin to be aware, and then we can kind of uncover these underlying subconscious or unconscious beliefs, and then we can choose what we're going to do with it.
Yeah.
So that's where, we've talked about the thinker and the prover, and so our unconscious beliefs are there. So you don't F this up, or you're going to F this up. You're probably going to F this up, Lydia. That's the unconscious belief. And so your prover sets out to show how you've F this up all the time. Mm-hmm. So the goal with that is to look for the opposite, evidence that the opposite is true. But also, I think coming up with another affirmation.
Yeah.
So look at all the ways that you are succeeding in parenting.
Yeah. My therapist said it this way, and I loved it. She's from the South too, and she happens to live in Wisconsin. So I love this about her, because she and we speak the same language. And she said, listen, you're worried about effing up your kids. And let me tell you that you already have. So it's over. There's nothing you can do about it. You've already done it. And so now move on. You know what I mean? Like that, because I've been in a state, what I recognize is that I've been in a state of hypervigilance since they were born, but I was in a state of hypervigilance as a child, and that was my fuel. Because of what was going on then. And so this state of hypervigilance is, my baseline, it's what I know. And so what mindfulness, over the last 15 or so odd years has done is, make me aware of the difference between me and the hypervigilance. Like, I'm no longer one with it,
and you're watching it instead of living it or being immersed in it.
Right.
Well, and I think that, mindfulness now is a household term.
Right.
People in general, people know what mindfulness is. People are more likely to meditate or practice in some form. They've learned ways to incorporate it more often than when I first learned about it and first started teaching it. And so now I think it is understanding that it's not everything. If it were, then, 2,000 plus year or however many thousand years later, because it's an ancient practice, then we'd all be fine.
Yeah, right.
If mindfulness was the only thing, and I had a client, he called me Miss Mary, and he was like, Miss Mary, mindfulness isn't everything, like he would get so mad at me every time I would bring it up. Mindfulness is the foundation, but then there's all this stuff underneath.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that, and that's kind of something that's been on my mind, and what this conversation is making me kind of thinking about is there's all this stuff, like a Pandora's box kind of thing underneath. But the mindfulness helps me become aware of it.
Yeah. And well, so let me just say too about it's purposeful practice that I practiced while there.
Yes.
I'm going to give an example of where, because you embrace a situation or a feeling as purposeful, it doesn't mean that you don't change. I actually believe that when you fully acknowledge that what is happening within you, in your emotions, in your mind, and externally is purposeful, then the next right action actually happens by itself. And an example of this is that I got the exciting task of deciding where we ate every night. And my very favorite thing, like if I had a favorite thing on the planet, it is eating out. I love it. I always have, even before kids. Eating out is my favorite thing. And so I got to pick, where we ate out, and we were really conservative in the mornings and in the afternoons so that we could have this dinner out. And in our family, when we eat out, that's when I get to be fun because I love it so much. And we play hangman and Pictionary, and like we always bring in a notebook, and everybody takes a turn. Like we have the most fun when we go out as a family to eat. And so I had picked this place. It was the same night. And we walk in, and from the second we walk in, I can feel that this is not the place. Like energetically, like, this is not it. Like, and we all get to the table, and I'm looking at the faces of my family, and their face says the exact same thing that my heart says, which is, this is not the place. So they pour the water, right? And give us the menus, and they walk away. And I said, this doesn't feel right. And each one of them said something about why they thought it wasn't right. And
what did they say? I'm just curious.
My one son said, it's too dark. My other son said, it's fancy. And I'm not going to tell you what my husband said in my ear. In that moment, I said, this is on purpose. Like this moment is on purpose. And what happened, I embraced it. I embraced the feeling like it wasn't on the right energetic space. I embraced that all of us were feeling this. I embraced that this was where we were sitting, and there were menus in front of us. And so the waitress with her big eyes, the beautiful waitress, sweet young waitress, comes and says, can I start you with something to drink? And I looked at her and I said, honey, I think we're going to go. And she looked crushed. She was like, oh, I'm sorry. Did I take too long? And I said, no, you did not do anything wrong. It's just, this isn't the right fit for us. This place just isn't
fun.
What I said is, this isn't the right fit for us. And she said, are you sure? Is there anything I can do? like she's giving me, and like the people pleasing part of me. And I went, no, there's nothing you can do. We're going to go. And so we all stand up, and we were at the back of a restaurant, and the kitchen is glass. So even the people making the food are watching us walk out of the restaurant that we just walked into, 5 or 10 minutes ago. And we got outside, and my husband said, I am so proud of you.
Yeah.
And I said, me too, because he said there was a time where there would have been no way on this planet that you would have let her, that waitress, even have her feelings hurt for a minute. It's
right.
like, and I remember Brene Brown saying, look, just tell the truth. Like, instead of when you see a person on the street saying, let's get together sometime, when you don't mean it, you say, it was good to see you. Moment of uncomfortableness, walk away. And that was
right.
what it was. It was, this isn't the right fit for us, which I had to say 3 times. Moment of uncomfortableness as we walked through. And then it was over. And we went to a restaurant that was perfect. And we got a table by the window of downtown, and we played hangman and Pictionary, and it was everything.
With your notebook.
Yeah. With my notebook.
Well, so I just wanted to mention that this is a great example of radical acceptance, because a lot of times people think that radical acceptance is about, like, when you accept something, you agree with it,
right, and don't change. So, right,
yeah, you don't have to agree with it, you don't have to like it, but
right,
accepting that there's purpose in whatever the experience is actually opens the door to changing it.
That's right. And when I
in an effective way,
and I said in my mind, this is on purpose, all of it. And so an old interpretation, maybe even 2 years ago, my interpretation would have been, it's on purpose that we're at this restaurant, so that means we're supposed to eat at this restaurant. And because I knew that I was embracing all of it, I was embracing the emotions, not just the reality of the situation, but the emotions and the feelings. I said, it's on purpose. I said this to myself. And then I just did the next right action, and was later able to go over it with my husband and really see the ways in which my intentional practice of self-love showed up, because I have practiced now for a long time, but definitely for a year to 2 of not giving myself away anymore. Like loving Lydia and showing up for her, and recognizing that my number one job is to show up for her. And so I did it, moment of uncomfortableness, walk away,
Very good.
Yeah. And there's even more to talk about with breaking the rules, but we are out of time. So
that's motivation to break the rules, which is the M in more.
Yes, I know.
Broke the rules.
Yes.
And
the rules of convention, yes. But there's even more breaking the rules stuff I want to talk to you about, because you inspire me to break the rules. And the way you do is because you show me that the rules are ridiculous. And so we've run out of time. I think you guys are going to hear this. I think we're just going to give you raw audio, and we'll see how this went. You just listened to a Lydia and Mary friend conversation. This is us. This is exactly what we would have said had you not been listening. So you got the best of us and the best of our relationship. So thanks for listening. We'll see what happens next.